here we are in the middle, only 5 months away now from the election. Soon people are going to start voting absentee. And most of them, it seems to me, aren't going to be voting on the issue that we're talking about right now, that we seem to think is very important. Preet, you want to weigh in on this?
There are people on the progressive side, on the Biden side, who think that democracy is in danger. I'm one of those people. I care about institutions. I think people care less about institutions and less about process and less about principles than they care about outcome. I think we become a very, not just tribal, but the part of the tribalism that I think is showing a lot of force is the person on your side, whether it's abortion or trade or whatever else. And on the progressive side, the issues that they care about. And, you know, the way in which some of this conversation is a little bit elite, but I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think our founding fathers were elite. And lots of people on the right always invoke the founding fathers, which is a very elitist concept, right? The idea of democracy and institutions and separation of powers and political philosophy and political theory, those that's elite subject matter, but it's the backbone and foundation of the country. And I worry that some of that is being lost because nobody seems to care that much anymore. All the other things that you want, whether it's the freedom to bear arms or to have reproductive rights or anything else, all relies on a well-functioning pluralistic democracy. And if you start, talking about these as being only elitist thoughts, I think we're in big trouble.
Well, you can see we've hit the kind of sensitive nerve of this 2024 election. And I just, again, on the point about whether this is, an elite preoccupation or not, I think it's actually at the core of the matter, because it strikes me that what Trump tried to do and what this conviction is about, what he tried to do in 2020 as well as 2016, was to nullify the votes of an election and therefore of the people, the masses votes, not the individuals. Remember that millions and millions more Americans voted for Joe Biden. You're, dismissing January 6th as sort of, I'm not sure, what, but this was a direct effort to seek to stop the certification of the people's votes, both the millions of Americans who voted more for Biden than Trump, and also in the states, Biden's victory. And it wasn't about the solidity of the institutions or the idea that democracy held. It's that they were much more vulnerable and fragile, and that after the 2020 election, we were much closer than we thought we would be, because it wasn't the institutions, it was one individual. We were one attorney general, one acting attorney general, one vice president, one chairman of the Joint Chiefs away from what would have been a coup on the constitutional order. I don't know why it is that people find it too hard to remember that occurred only not even 4 years ago, but that is literally like an unthinkable thing. And having crossed that Rubicon, I think that the idea that we're just treating this as a normal election between two warring tribes with different ideologies is really, that's what history is going to remember about this moment, unfortunately.
We've grown accustomed to the luxury of repeated peaceful transfers of power. Things always work out for the United States of America. We're the greatest country in the world and have been for a very long time. The greatest country ever, for a lot of reasons, notwithstanding the crises we find ourselves plunged into now. And so there's a tendency on the part of some people, I think, when other people ring the bell and worry that you're overreacting. And my concern is that the rest of the folks are underreacting. And it's impossible. There is nothing that guarantees in the rule of law, in the world order, or by God's grace, if you believe in that, that just because the United States has been a great democracy, it will persist in being democratic. And just because we haven't before elected someone like Donald Trump, a deceitful populist who likes to pit people against each other, he's a different order of person. And I think that people are underestimating the pain and damage that will be caused to the country if he's reelected. And a part of that is because of perpetual American optimism, I think, that things always work out. We get into a recession, we get into a depression, we work our way out of it. The world is plunged into war. America comes to the rescue. America always is resilient and resolves to fix itself. And I just don't know that faith is as well placed as it used to be.
Susan, last word to you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a powerful conversation, Ian. We may have a history that marks us as different than all the other countries in the world, but at the same time, I think the events of the last 8 years have shown pretty clearly that we might not be as exceptional as we think we are. It's not an accident that there have been these kind of rise of far-right populism in so many countries around the world over the last few years. There's a pretty clear playbook that shows that Trump is running down the checklist of a would-be authoritarian. And that's the context in which I think we should view things like the attack on the jury's verdict in the trial. And by the way, I don't think we know the answer yet. I don't think we know the outcome yet. And I remember the words of the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, when he was asked, what's the election going to be about? And he said it's going to be two things. It's going to be democracy and Dobbs. That's the Supreme Court ruling throwing out Roe versus Wade. There's a strong chance that he's correct about that.